Chapter 6. Sound as Archive. Voices, echoes, and the memory of noise. Some places live in our memory because of how they looked, yet others remain with us because of what they sounded like. A gate that clicks shut at the same time every evening. A kettle that always seems to take a little longer than it should. Rain beginning on a conservatory roof before it reaches the street outside. These are not sounds that demand attention, yet they take root somewhere in us. They are stored quietly, without ceremony. Then, years later, a single one of them can return unexpectedly and bring back not only the image of the room it belonged to, but also its air, temperature, and the feeling of being there. Sound is brief in the air, yet it is long in the body. A voice disappears the instant a sentence ends, yet its tone, rhythm, and particularities can be recalled decades later. We can remember the lift in pitch at the end of a question, the softness in a name spoken with care, the sudden sharpness of warning. Church bells may stop ringing, markets may close for the day, trains may move on from the station, yet the patterns of their sound remain in us, as familiar as a path we know by heart. They become roots through time, guiding us to memories that are felt before they are thought. Listening in this way is not an act of nostalgia, it is an act of presence. The sounds of a place tell us about its life. The early lorry, making its way down the high street before dawn. The shrill release of the school bell at 3 in the afternoon. The unexpected stillness of a Sunday morning. Even silence has its own qualities. The hush that follows fresh snow is not the same as the pause after a song finishes. The absence of noise is never neutral. It carries the weight of what has just been, or of what is waiting to arrive. Sound is one of the most fleeting forms of memory, yet its effects can be among the most enduring. Unlike stone, wood, or paper, it leaves no visible trace. Its archive is held in repetition, in the rhythms that embed themselves in the mind, and in the way the body responds to them, even when we are not consciously listening. Within the ghost movement, sound is understood as a carrier of presence. A bell rung for decades becomes part of the emotional structure of a community. A song heard in childhood can, years later, bring back not only the scene, but also the air and the feeling that surrounded it. Even the hum of a particular appliance can signal safety, belonging, or the return of a familiar routine. This is not about collecting sounds for preservation, but about recognizing that they shape memory in real time. When we recall a place, sound enters the picture without our invitation. The laughter from a neighbouring room, the wind rattling a loose pane, the particular way someone once spoke our name. When a sound disappears, the closing of a factory, the discontinuation of a night train, the absence of a voice once heard daily from the kitchen, the silence it leaves behind can be as tangible as the sound itself. Silence after a constant rhythm does not feel empty. It feels charged, like the pause that follows the telling of a truth. Sound does not just pass through the ears. It enters the body. It can alter breath, shift posture, and change the way we move. A sudden noise can make the shoulders rise. A song tied to a certain chapter of life can change the pace of our steps. The human body is a resonator, carrying echoes long after the sound itself has gone. A parent's voice can settle a child from another room. An old friend's laugh can warm a space the moment it is heard. These are physical reactions, evidence that sound lives not only in the mind, but also in the nervous system and muscles that have learned to respond to it. Some sounds are so familiar that we stop hearing them. The fridge's steady hum, the drone of traffic on a nearby road, the gentle ticking of a clock. They become part of the background rhythm that tells us we are home. Take them away, and the body registers the loss before the mind understands what has changed. Some sounds survive as habits. A phrase you repeat, a melody you hum without thinking, the way you find your steps, falling into time with a remembered beat. Others remain as absences, a missing footstep on the stairs, the absence of birdsong that once filled the morning, the radio no longer tuned to the kitchen. To move through the world, attuned to sound, is to walk through a layered archive. Every footstep on gravel, every rustle of leaves, every murmur of conversation is part of a living record. Just as we can read the history of a place in the weathering of its walls, we can also hear it in the air if we allow ourselves to listen. The past is not only held in objects and images, It is carried on the air in vibrations that shape us. Honouring sound as part of memory begins with attention. It is not a matter of recording, categorising or collecting. It is about noticing what is already there, as it is, without rushing to decide its meaning. Listening can happen anywhere. You do not need special conditions. It can be in the middle of a busy street, in the pause before speaking, or while lying awake at night. Notice the soundscape around you, the close and the distant, the continuous and the fleeting, and let them sit together, forming a whole, without being forced into a single story. Memory can also be approached through sound. Think of a place from your past, not by how it looked, but by how it sounded. Which sounds were always present? Which ones marked change or transition? Which ones carried comfort, warning, or uncertainty? This is not about indulging in sentimentality, but about recognizing how sound shapes our sense of safety, belonging, and alertness. The sounds we make also enter the memories of others. Our voices, footsteps, and ways of moving through a space all leave an imprint. Every repeated sound becomes a pattern, and patterns are absorbed by those around us whether we realize it or not. The closing of a door in a particular way, the rhythm of setting down a cup, the tone used when greeting someone, all of these can take root in the archive of another person's life. In the same way, the pauses and silences we leave between our sounds also have weight. They give shape to the rhythm, allowing meaning to emerge in the space between. Sound is transient. We cannot hold it in our hands. We can only meet it in the moment and recognize it as it passes. To honour sound is to honour the moment, knowing that once it has moved on, it will only exist as an echo within us. Yet when a sound fades, it does not vanish. It shifts form. It moves from the air into the body, and from the body into memory. A vibration becomes a trace, a sense, a quiet presence carried into other times and places. Sounds often change as they are remembered. A song might slow down in the mind. A voice might become softer or more distant. We are not neutral keepers of these sounds. We shape them even as we preserve them. The archive of sound is a living one, always being altered by the way we remember and retell it. The sounds that remain closest to us often become woven into our own ways of speaking, moving, and occupying space. They survive not as recordings, but as living rhythms, moving through us into the lives of others. Sound's archive is everywhere, but it can only be entered by listening. As we step beyond this page, our listening becomes part of the unending chorus of all that has been heard before. In the next chapter, Light and Shadow, the shape of form, the focus will widen. We will see how every crossing, whether it leads us towards joy or into sorrow, carries both light and shadow. By recognizing their interplay, we can begin to understand the shapes our lives take. The thresholds we have crossed in sound prepare us for this duality, reminding us that change is never made of a single tone, and that to live fully is to hold more than one note at the same time.